All right. About to be live right now. Just exit out of that window, out of that. All right. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom, all of our brothers and sisters out there. I'm Brother Doug, as always. So we are going to be doing our regular Shabbat evening readings, Romans 13 and 14. So let me just see here. Let me just fix something here, guys. Want to make sure we have enough room on the cloud because I'm going to start doing cloud recordings again along with the lives. So as you guys are seeing here live, you're kind of seeing the imperfections right now. Let me see here. So where the heck is recordings? We got this all different now. Very weird. Really not a fan of how they have it at all. They have it under meetings now. That is very strange. Okay. Wow, okay, they got like a whole, yeah, it's very confusing here. All right, here we go. All right, so let me just make sure, good. All right, we got, so let me just make sure that, yeah, looks like it wasn't fully deleted. I always like to keep our cloud as empty as possible so we can do these recordings, okay? All right, everyone, here we go. We're about to record to the cloud here. All right, so those of you that have joined the YouTube live, you know we were already on. We were already live a couple of minutes ago, so we're going to be doing our regular Sabbath evening meetings. So those of you that are going to hear the cloud recording, eventually we're going to start, editing these videos and start doing cloud recordings, Yahuwah willing, on YouTube and stuff like that. So those of you that will, if you do hear a cloud recording, you'll probably be a little bit behind with the live, okay? But anyway, so we're going to be doing Romans 13 to 14 tonight, as already stated for those that are on the live. Okay, so we're going to be finishing up Romans here. Now, what I'm going to try to do for you guys, because this shouldn't be that different in the Greek, really shouldn't be for these last two chapters. So I'm going to go on my screen share. Okay, let's see here. Those of you that have Android, I really recommend getting this Microsoft app launcher. It's like a substitution for your regular Android UI, and I just like how it looks. Looks a little bit more professional. But anyway, so let's see here. Let's try what I really like about the New Heart English Bible Tetragrammaton version is they give you a lot of footnotes for every verse. They'll let you know what manuscript, if the manuscript has something lacking, vice versa. So it's been really helping me expose the Westcott Hort stuff. Okay, so let's see here, Romans 13. Let every person be subjected to governing authorities, for there is no authority except from Elohim, and those that exist are appointed by Elohim. So what is this saying here? What is this saying? That that Yahuwah has appointed every government. Yes, that includes the heathen governments. Okay, they're under his jurisdiction. Okay, that's literally what it's saying. In Romans 13 there. So it literally says, let every person, Just a little bit of background.
You cutie.
All right, let me just kind of, just for the sake of, let's see here. I'm gonna have to put the mute just so there's not any background noise here. All right, so context, right, is every government. So that includes, like I said in other studies, and one I shared with someone from another fellowship today, I shared about an old study we did about Yahuwah's righteousness versus social justice. Okay, just like in that study, I iterate here. Okay, this means every government. That means Nazi Germany in World War II, Yahuwah was still sovereign over that government. And this goes for every government in history. Ultimately, Yahuwah puts kings in place, including pagan ones, okay, and he removes them. So this is something we have to come to the grips of. This is a biblical fact, okay? And like I said in that other video, it says all. It does not say all that are obedient to Yahuwah. It says all. So that means those that follow after Yahuwah and those that don't, okay? Therefore, he who resists the authority withstands the ordinance of Eluah, and those who withstand will receive themselves judgment, or some translations actually put condemnation in that verse, okay? I would go with condemnation mainly because of the context of what's been given. For rulers are not a terror to the to work, but to the evil. Do you desire to have no fear of the authority? Do that which is tube, you will have praise from the same, meaning that you will have praise from Yahuwah for obeying him. Okay. For he is a servant of Eluah to you for tube. But if you do that which is evil, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain, for he is a servant of Eluah and an avenger for wrath to him who does evil. Okay. Pretty much self-explanatory there, okay? Therefore, you need to be in subjection, not only because of the wrath, but also for the conscience sake. For this reason, you also pay taxes, for they are servants of Eluah's service, attending continually on this very thing. Give therefore to everyone what you owe, taxes to whom taxes are due, customs to whom customs, respect to whom respect, honor to whom honor. Yep. Owe no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves his brother or neighbor has fulfilled the law. This is why it's important to understand who our neighbor is and why I stress on this. Because this, I'm going to tell you, this is how the church would read this verse. This is how Christianity reads this verse. Owe no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves everyone has fulfilled the law. That's not what it's saying, though. It's saying those who love his neighbor has fulfilled the law. Now, we can go, again, we can go to context. We can go, obviously, it's talking about loving your brother and your sister in Messiah, okay? Galatians 5:14, for the whole law is fulfilled in one word, in this, you are to love your neighbor as yourself. Again, Exodus 20, okay? 1 Timothy 1:5, but the goal of this command is love out of a pure heart and a true conscious and unfeigned belief. Again, none of those verses say love everyone, okay? This concept that everyone's our neighbor, that the human community is our neighbor, there's no biblical precedent for it. It's not anywhere in Scripture. For the commandments, do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not steal, do not give false testimony, do not covet. Whatever other commandments there are all summed up in this saying, You are to love your neighbor as yourself. Again, it's summed up in loving your brother and sister in Yahusha as yourself. Because ultimately, guys, who was given the law? Think about it. Yashrael was given the law, right? So that means the purpose of the Ten Commandments, even though they can be extrapolated sometimes to more than just believers and how you're supposed to treat those outside the faith, the main objective of the Ten Commandments and the whole law for 80% of the law is talking about how Israel was to treat one another and how they were to treat Yahuwah, how they were to act towards their heavenly Father. That is the point. Okay, so again, the Torah was given to Israel at Sinai. We must understand that. The majority of the context of the Torah is within the body of Messiah. It's not, there are certain commandments that it is impossible to take with a universalist understanding. You know, we don't have time to go through it, but there's many commandments that there's no way you can treat it as that it refers to everyone. You know, including the sabbatical, the Sabbath year, or you know, the year of Jubilee, the sabbatical year. There's no way to ecumenicalize that. It says to basically release the debts of your brothers and sisters in Yahusha. For the commandments, do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not steal, do not give false witness, do not covet, and whatever other commandments there are all summed up in this same, namely, you are to love your neighbor as yourself. Love does not harm a neighbor, therefore is the fulfillment of the law. Love is therefore the fulfillment of the law. Okay? Do this knowingly the time that is already time for you to awaken out of sleep for salvation. The night is far gone, and the day is near. Let us therefore throw off the works of darkness. Let us put on the armor of light. Let us walk decently as in the daytime. I would say decently is a little too modern. It should say, let us walk righteously, or, you know, that would be a lot better word to use there. As in the daytime, not in carousing and drunkenness, not in sexual immorality and lustful acts, not in dissension or jealousy, but put on the Master, Yahusha Messiah, and make no provision for the flesh, meaning don't set apart acts for the flesh. Like, don't try to make, don't try to rationalize doing the works of the flesh for its lusts. So Romans 13 is pretty self-explanatory. Romans 13 is all about judging authorities. All of them are of Yahuwah. We should not rebel against these heathen authorities. Obviously, the rest of the chapter is dealing with how you're to walk in your everyday life, to love your brother, love your sister. To obviously got into the top 10 commands, and how loving your brother or sister is the top 10 commandments of the law is summed up in loving your brother or sister. Because think about it. If I love my brother in Messiah, am I going to covet his wife? If I love my brother in Messiah, am I going to steal from him? If I love my brother in Messiah, am I going to think to murder him in my mind, in my heart, or even physically murder him? No. So when we look at the top 10, Paul's trying to say, listen, all these are summed up in love, in having love for your brother and sister, and loving Yahuwah, right? That's the context. That's what I see anyway. I think Paul was trying to bring that home, that if you love your brother or sister, by nature, you will not break these other commandments. That's what he's trying to say. Anyway, Mom, do you have anything you want to add? Or
no, said it all.
Yeah. Now, except one who is weak in the faith. So this is one of the most misunderstood chapters in Paul's letters. And I'm glad we're ending on this tonight. So Romans 14, those of you that think Romans 14 is giving you allowance to eat pork, I want you guys to pay attention to how I'm going to read this chapter and take it, extrapolate it precept by precept here. Because there's been a false understanding that people have that this chapter is telling you that someone weak in the faith doesn't eat unclean things. And if you're weak in the faith, you'll think that you can't eat certain meats. That's not what this chapter is saying at all. And I'll prove it to you. Okay. So here we go. Romans 14. Now, except one who is weak in the faith, meaning except the person that's weak, but not for disputes over opinions. Key phrase, opinion. Now, Mom, open book test, Mom, is precept not to eat unclean things an opinion?
No.
It's a fact, right? So right there, we have to dispel this rumor that this chapter can be used to rationalize eating pork. Can't, because it just says you shouldn't dispute over opinions, okay? One person has belief to eat all things, but the one who is weak eats only vegetables. Hold on, pause. Eats only vegetables. What is the topic here? Eating meat versus eating vegetables, not eating unclean versus clean. So that's what we have to understand here. And mind you guys, I'm reading like a modern, like 1999 Bible or something. Like, I don't know when the New Heart Bible came out, but this is like a new millennium Bible. This is as modern as you can get. Okay. One person has faith to eat all things, but the other one is weak and eats only vegetables. Okay. So Paul is defining someone that believes that. Basically, you guys got to understand this from the context of the first century. There was debates of new believers coming in. They were obsessed to an extent about meat sacrificed to idols. They got to the point, guys, where the meat markets back in the day, what would happen was the meat left over from the sacrifices at pagan temples, there would be meat left over from those sacrifices. Now, they would sell it to the meat market. The meat market would buy it from them and then sell it to the common people. So the problem is that new believers thought, okay, what happens if I perchance ate meat that was left over from a sacrifice to idols? Paul is saying, and he says it in other places, he's like, listen, if you have a good conscience, you should be able to trust that that's not the case. But the new believers were so worried to the point where they thought any meat that was sold in a market was sacrificed to an idol. And what Paul's trying to say, if you had a good conscience, you would know and trust in Yahuwah that that meat wasn't sacrificed to an idol. So basically, it was like back in the day, it was like a 50-50 chance. And what Paul is saying is that if you have a good conscience, then you should not be worried. You should know that, basically that, that it's not sacrificed to an idol, because basically they thought any type of meat would have been sacrificed to an idol. They got so crazy to the point that they thought there was no meat safe to eat anymore. So that's what the context of that is. And he even says here, it says, who are you who judges another servant? To his own master he stands or falls. Yes, he will be made to stand, for Yahuwah has power to make him stand. One esteems one day as more important than the another day. Seems every day alike. Let each be fully convinced in his own mind. Now we're talking about certain days to do certain things. So now we're switching to a different topic, mind you, right? Okay, and some people think this is talking about the Sabbath and that you can pick one day to be a Sabbath. That's not what Paul's talking about, okay? I'll show you proof here. Okay, so verse 6 here. The one who observes the day observes it to Yahuwah, and the one who does not observe the day, he does he does not observe it to Yahuwah. The one who eats, he eats to Yahuwah. The one and gives thanks to Yahuwah. And the one who does not eat, he does not eat to Yahuwah and gives thanks to Yahuwah. So what is this saying here? It's saying that certain people want to make certain days a day of fasting, not commanded, by the way. This is not a commandment, okay? Paul's talking about traditional fasting days, okay? Some believers would want to fast on a certain day. Other believers don't fast on that day, okay? So, and we see that in Christianity today too. Certain denominations, they make you feel bad because you didn't fast on the same day as them. The Pentecostals do that. I mean, that it's a tradition well alive even in Christianity. Okay. So see here. For none of us live to himself, and none dies to himself. For if we live to Yahuwah, or if we die to Yahuwah. If therefore we live or die, we are Yahuwah's. For this end Messiah died and lived again, that he might be master of both the dead and the living. And actually, it actually could be Yahuwah of the dead and the living. Yeah, so a lot of translations try to just make it Lord or Master. I would argue that Kurios there is referring to the Tetragrammaton and should be that that he might be Yahuwah both of the dead and the living. So I'm going to write that down. Romans 14:9 possibly could say Yahuwah. Both, why do you judge your brother? Oh, my bad. But why do you judge your brother? Or why do you set at nothing your brother? For we shall all stand before the judgment seat of the Messiah. So Paul is saying, like, why are you judging your brother, condemning your brother for something that's optional? Okay. For it is written, as I live, says Yahuwah, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess to Yahuwah. You know what's interesting about this verse here is that this verse in Philippians, Paul reveals that every knee shall bow to Yahusha. So we see a little bit of a oneness there. Okay, in Philippians 2:10, you can match with Romans 14:11. Okay, so Paul is putting it together that Yahusha is Yahuwah, because in Philippians 2:10 it says that at the name of Yahusha every knee should bow, of things in heaven and things in earth and things under the earth. Okay, so I'll put a little note here, oneness. Verse 12, so then every one of us shall give account of himself to Yahuwah. Let us not judge therefore one another by any more, but rightly rule this, rather that no man put a stumbling block or an occasion to fall in his brother's way. Now, I just want to iterate here, because I know some people would take this and run with it that, oh, we can't judge one another. It's a sin to judge one another. That's not what Paul is saying. He's saying we need to stop false condemning one another. And that's the truth. So what's going on here, Paul is talking about, why are you judging one another for non-essential things? That's what he's talking about. And he's saying to not falsely judge one another. That's what he's talking about. I know and am persuaded by the Savior Yahusha that there is nothing unclean of itself, but to him that esteems anything to be unclean, to him it is unclean. Now, again, verse 14. What is the context of this chapter we've seen so far? What is Paul talking about, clean versus unclean? He wasn't talking about unfood a couple of verses ago. So if we keep everything in context, what is he talking about, clean versus unclean? Paul, it seems very obvious to me that the context here, he's saying that one day is esteemed clean to unclean. What you got to understand is, in the rabbinical tradition, and I'm pretty sure if we were to look in the Talmud, you could probably find certain places that it talks about this. They esteemed certain days worthy of fasting and certain days not. So in rabbinical tradition, they would esteem some days as being clean and other days that are not clean. Now, in the Torah, there's no such thing as that. There's no such thing in the scriptures as one day is more set apart than another to fast on. You will not find that. But in the rabbinical traditions, there are. And I believe that's what's being said here, because Paul is not talking about food here. Clearly, he's not. He was just talking about what day to fast on and stuff like that. So obviously, clean versus unclean of verse 14 cannot be referring to food. Okay. But if your brother be grieved with your meat and you walk not with love, don't destroy him with your meat for whom the Messiah died. Let not then your two be evil spoken of. For the kingdom of Yahuwah is not meat and drink, but righteousness and peace and joy in the set apart spirit. Again, Paul's saying the kingdom of Yahuwah is not about whether you think it's okay to eat on a certain day or not to eat on a certain day, or is it okay to only eat vegetables? That's what Paul's talking about, okay? For he that is in these things serves the Messiah, is acceptable to Yahuwah and approved by men. Let us therefore follow after things which make for shalom and things wherewith one may edify one another. For meat destroys not the work of Yahuwah. All things indeed are pure, but it is evil for that man who eats with offense. Meaning, if you have a perverted conscience, you shouldn't eat. It is too neither to eat flesh, nor to drink wine, nor anything whereby your brother stumbles, or is offended, or is made weak. Do you have belief? Have it to yourself before Yahuwah. Glad is he that condemns not himself in that the thing which he allows. And he that is double-minded, okay, or my bad, he that is doubts is damned if he eats, because he eats not in belief or trust. For whatsoever is not of belief is sin. Meaning, let's say, right, I'm fully not convinced that meat that was cooked at someone's house was not offered to an idol. It would be sin for me to eat if I have a corrupted conscience. That's all he's saying. And vice versa with those that believe it's only okay to eat vegetables. If you are not eating in belief, you should not, you shouldn't be eating something just to appease someone, and then you have a guilty conscience for no reason. You have false guilt on yourself because you're weak in the faith. Okay, and because a lot of us, when we first come into Torah, we're all worried, oh my goodness, that could be sacrificed to an idol, that could be sacrificed to an idol. And we get so crazy that we think, oh, well, it's just safe not to eat meat anymore. That's someone weak in the faith. And that's what Paul's talking about. So it's important to understand the two main themes, I would say three main themes in this chapter really is meat, the clean meat versus vegetables only, eating meat and vegetables, like kosher meat and vegetables versus only eating vegetables. That's the main theme. The second main theme is what days to fast on. And then the third thing would be, someone that has a clear conscience when they eat meat that they get at the market versus someone that thinks all the meat's defiled. You can't eat the meat because everything's sacrificed to an idol, supposedly. That's what Paul's talking about in the context of this chapter. So hopefully you guys understood that. Hopefully I helped you understand that. So anyone that tells you that the themes in this chapter are to keep the Sabbath or not, or to eat pork or not, all you got to do is just tell that person you're not taking that chapter in context. You're putting your own interpretation into the text. So Paul in no way, shape, or form is referring to the days that he's referring to as Sabbath days. There's no language in this chapter that refers it to Sabbath days. And also with the pork, there's no mention of unclean meat. So anyway, hopefully you guys understood that. I just want to thank all of our loyal subscribers that have been following us through this playlist of Shaul's letters. Please stay tuned. I believe we have Ephesians, Yahuwah willing, next week. And please stay tuned, everyone. Yahuwah willing, we will be starting that next week, Yahuwah willing. And Yahuwah willing, we will be back on YouTube tomorrow for, I believe we are getting closer and closer to the end of Deuteronomy. Let me just check for you guys to let you know where we're going to be in that. Let's see here. Check something real quick, guys, before we sign off here. Go on my YouTube Studio app real quick. Come on. All right. Sorry about that. Had a little bit of technical difficulties here. For some reason, my camera was off most of the time. So, all right, guys. So tomorrow it looks like we're going to be at Deuteronomy 31 to 34. So please stay tuned, everyone. Like I said, Yahuwah willing, we should be back tomorrow. And Shabbat Shalom for all of our brothers and sisters out there. And thank you for stopping by. Yahuwah